Oh, there's an echo. That is really strange.
That's strange, isn't it?
Hang on a second. Let's just do something. Have you got your echo cancellation on? Are you watching somewhere else?
Hold on. What's going on?
What's going on? This is weird. Can you hear me all right?
What's going on? Yeah. What's happening?
Hang on. Right, ladies and gents, boys and girls, can you guys hear us okay? Never had this before.
Is it stopped?
I think it stopped.
Okay. That was so weird.
I think it stopped. Right.
Yeah.
Decorum. Okay. No one cared who I was till I put on the mask. Here we are. Welcome to the Latte Firm, the Daily Grind. What a crazy mess. I am sweating buckets, ladies and gents. I have run home from St. Paul's in London. I sent you a message at 6:20 on the central line. I've pegged it with my sprained MCL in my right knee, and I am absolutely sweating. My glasses are steaming up. But what a glorious day. Viktor Gyökeres is on his way to Arsenal. I am absolutely delighted, and I'm delighted to be joined by Tom Canton of the Gooner Talk TV. Tom, welcome.
Welcome, man.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm not sweating as much as you are, and I can't hear myself in my headphones anymore, which is good. So yeah, it's all good, man.
Honestly, what a start to the show. This is live show business, ladies and gents. I am Dan Alpha says, evening FK and Tom. I expect you both to do the thing. Yeah, can't wait. It's going to be so good at the Emirates. Matt says hello from Chicago. Jimmy's in the house. Evening, gents. Sir Jack Ibis is in the house. Evening, lads. Come on, you Gunners. Paul James. There's so many lovely messages. Here we go. People are excited, and rightly so, Tom. The news has broken. How are you feeling? Just raw reaction straight away?
Relieved. I think that's the first one. Yeah, relieved is definitely the initial emotion, and just I'm so glad this is over. I love the transfer window most of the time, right? I enjoy it. It's always when the channels kind of pop off and you get the most kind of like conversations flowing and different people joining you for the first time in the transfer window, because people switch on more for transfers. But my goodness me, Arsenal fans love to suck the life and joy out of this. Like, really, genuinely do. People just love to fall for so much misinformation and only like to believe all the negative stuff rather than anything positive might come along. And it's, I'm not sure about that. But, you find out that the deal's apparently collapsing and it's, end of the world. It definitely must not be happening anymore. And, look where we are now.
Look where we are now. By the way, there's people watching from Singapore. Enjoy. The Arsenal boys are in town, and hopefully Viktor Gyökeres will be on his way soon as well. People are just madly excited. Here we go. These emojis, Tom, they're going to be big. Roscoe de Sol. What a name. Roscoe de Sol. The emojis are going to be absolutely awesome. Finally, we got him, and that is where we are going to start, ladies and gents. So, the news broke today. We have full agreement. David Ornstein with the first bomber. Hopefully you guys can see that on screen, Tom. Saying that Arsenal and Sporting are on the verge of total agreement for Viktor Gyökeres, 63.5 million euros, plus 10 million euros already struck, but add-ons needed some work, and now we're doing the final touches. And then Fabrizio Romano just shortly after saying Viktor Gyökeres to Arsenal. Here we go. Verbal agreement in place between all parties involved. Sporting have accepted the last bid from Arsenal, 63.5 million euros. What a feeling, because we have pursued a centre-forward for so long, Tom. This pursuit has gone on for ages and ages. And of course, we had over the weekend Manchester United flirting with the idea of maybe going in for him, but Arsenal were always the club for him. How does it feel to finally get the man over the line? And what are your thoughts on the striker as a signing for Arsenal?
Yeah, look, it's exciting. There's no doubt about that, because we have waited a long time for the centre forward role to be fulfilled. And he wasn't the guy that Arsenal went for at the start of the window. He wasn't their primary target. He wasn't the one that I looked at and thought, yeah, he's definitely my number one pick. I was leaning more towards the Šeško idea, but not at the figure that Leipzig were wanting. That figure was silly. And I think, to be honest, to get Viktor Gyökeres in for, with add-ons included, about £63.4 million is really good. When you look at Hugo Ekitike, for instance, who's going to Liverpool for just south of £80 million after one decent season where he scored less than half the number of goals that Gyökeres obviously got last season for Sporting, that kind of shows you the the deal that this is and the deal that Arsenal have got. And they didn't buckle. They didn't just pay the money or pay them what they wanted. As everyone said, just pay them what they want. Just give them whatever they want. Get it done. Andrea Berta is not like the people that panic and, if he's playing a game of poker, just goes all in, and then loses because he hasn't actually got the right hand. He's a person that's patient. He's a person that's shrewd and precise and composed. And he's got Arsenal, the centre forward, that I think he wanted, so I think his preference maybe was more so Gyökeres than anyone else. And he's got that player in for a very, very good fee that we hope as well enables Arsenal to not just stop here, but keep going with other potential deals, maybe one more big one.
They're calling it the start of the Victorian era, says V Vlad. I absolutely love it. The mood amongst the fan base is one of jubilance. It's fantastic. Let's talk about our new gunman. We've done a deep dive into Viktor Gyökeres on this channel. I'm sure you have as well, Tom, on the Gooner Talk TV. Check out the channel feeds for further detail on that. We had a problem last season. We didn't score enough goals across all competitions. We certainly didn't score enough goals in the Premier League. Kai Havertz, our top goal scorer, of course, hampered by injury. First time in almost 100 years that we couldn't get a player with double digits. This guy has scored 54 goals for Sporting Lisbon last season, 39 in the league, 36 with his right foot, 3 with his left foot, none with his head, as we're repeatedly told. Is it as simple as saying, Tom, that this guy is just going to get us goals?
That is exactly what he's there to do. He's a poacher. He's a finisher. He does his work inside the 18-yard box. He can strike from range and has done in the past. But I was listening to. Did you hear Dominic Calvert-Lewin doing his podcast? I think he was on the High Performance podcast recently. He just said that Carlo Ancelotti just said to him, "Just stay in the box, mate. Just stay in the box and shoot first time." And he said, "I got 16 goals just working off of Carlo Ancelotti's, and we just need somebody at times that's going to be there." The amount of crosses or great balls that go into really dangerous areas in the box and no one's there has been such an agonizing watch at times. We need that finisher. And Gyökeres, there are raw aspects of his game. There are refinements still needed at the age of 27. There are definitely doubts and concerns that are there. And that's why he wasn't the primary target as opposed to Alexander Isak, who we, of course, know would be the dream signing for Arsenal, but not at the fees that Newcastle are asking for. But it is those raw aspects of his game, pure goal-scoring threat, the great timing, movement into the box is really strong. He's really good speed and strength, great in transitions, which we don't generate loads of transitional moments, but when we do, we've really lacked that ability to take advantage of them, and he'll help with that. So yeah, look, this is going to be very, very exciting for Arsenal fans, and hopefully it's a whole stadium doing the Bane celebration at points this campaign.
It is. I can't wait. I just love the way that Yembele's just at home turning out lines. Says, "Good evening, everyone. You merely use the darkness. I was born into it." I love it. I just love it so much. Honest T says that reveal video needs the whole squad. Did you see Miles Lewis-Skelly's little moment of joy today?
Declan Rice is liking things. Madueke's liking things. Max Dowman, I think, has liked Fabrizio's post. Like, everyone's liking it. They love it.
Everyone's so happy. People just love each other. Look at this, Gooner boy. I love you, TC. People just shouting out TGT. Listen, he's got enough subscribers. Don't give him the publicity. Talking of getting in the box, that is a shot map courtesy of Cannon Stats, good friend Scott Willis. That is all his goals at Sporting Lisbon. And there's almost like a beautiful symmetry to it. He loves to score goals, obviously, scoring goals from central areas of the box, deep inside the 6-yard area, by the penalty spot. Of course, he gets a lot of pens. There are some lovely strikes from outside the box as well. He's surpassed his XG in that period of time as well. Arteta's going to have to tweak a little bit his style, because everyone's talked about Viktor Gyökeres and how effective he is on the transition and, playing him into space. He loves to bully defenders, but he is very much going to be a box player for us. And he's going to get on the end of those crosses that we've seen, like you said, Tom, time and time again. Saka drilling the ball across, Ben White drilling the ball across, from the balls coming in from the left-hand side. We finally got ourselves a prolific and very capable striker. And in terms of physical attributes, speed and power, my friend. Welcome back to the Arsenal. I can't tell you how excited I am about this.
Yeah, look, the last real number 9, traditional up there with, what we would consider to be the elite level forwards was Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He was the last striker that we had. Before that, it was Robin van Persie. So they don't come along too often for us. We're talking about each decade nearly that these players, or at least 2 in a decade, if we're lucky. And Aubameyang played in a team that he basically dragged to an FA Cup victory in 2020. And of course, because of a number of reasons, both in and out of his control, he left in unsavoury circumstances, it would be probably fair to point out. He joined Arsenal in 2018 as a world-class centre-forward and scored a lot of goals for us on a regular basis. But the team around him didn't contribute enough, and there wasn't enough quality around him, and we fell down because of that. Gyökeres is joining a team in 2025 that is considered to be one of the most fearful in Europe right now. A Champions League semi-finalist that's beaten Real Madrid 5-1 in their own patch in the Bernabeu, has broken records in terms of Premier League wins, more than the Invincibles in 23-24, more goals than the Invincibles scored in that season, only just being pipped to the title by Manchester City. Have, of course, got to 2 semi-finals last season, including the League Cup, and has got a squad that's not just a starting 11, but with the reinforcements that we've done this summer, that's got depth and quality. And you're looking at every position now in the 11, even before we potentially do more business this window. You have 2 competitive options in every single one of the 11 in this team now. And that should have been the aim, and that has been achieved.
Indeed. Look who he is in the chat. Hey, how you doing that? Multitasking.
I know. I'd show some love. There's nice people in there. So.
Just a random one that's just come into my mind. Obviously, the happiness of the Arsenal fans is fantastic. And look, there were a lot of miserable fans, impatient, expecting things to happen. We finally got our man. Let's not talk about the sort of the negativity that we've seen certainly on the socials recently. Let's be happy. Where does this rank in terms of signings for you, Tom?
Well, that entirely depends on what he does.
No. But okay. Let me rephrase. In terms of the arrival, the announcement itself, when you see him in his shirt, we all remember the Mesut Ozil day. Does this get close? Like, when you see him, are you going to be that jubilant to see finally a striker after years of hunting for one?
It is solely dependent upon the quality of the announcement video, my friend. It's
going to be so good.
Now, listeners of my channel know what I want to see. And I think the opportunity that Arsenal have, that if they do not choose to take advantage of what Gabriel did in Sporting and don't use that to start off the video, not like a Yo Pierre thing, you want to come out here, but like Gabriel starts the thing with his hands over his eyes, and he brings them down. And as he brings them down, it reveals Gyökeres instead. I think that's perfect. I don't think you get better than that. So, look, in terms of aura, I think the signing of Mesut Ozil, for me in my lifetime, it's more of a modern era thing, like announcements of players, because of the social media aspect of it, and the deadline day aspect of Ozil was. I can't think of a time or ever in the future where we will get a massive kind of dopamine hit like that. So Gyökeres will rank highly because it's the fabled centre forward. But Declan Rice for me was huge, bigger than this. That was a massive deal for Arsenal to go over £100 million and bring in a player that was going to transform us. So Ozil's announcement, I think, is up there, probably the best. That's not to say that I think he's one of the best players I've ever had. I think he's one of the most talented, but it didn't work out for him. It's just the announcement and the aura that it brought. It's probably number one for me. And Gyökeres, let's wait and see how they announce it first.
Until we sign Eberechi Eze.
Indeed. Which I would rank higher, personally. I think that
would be insane.
Unbelievable signing if they do it.
Hold that thought. But imagine this celebration at the Emirates. And listen, I'm not going to lie. Every time he scores, Tom, I am going to be that grown man in the North Bank giving it back. I can't wait. I don't care. I'm sure I'll be on camera at some point. I'm sure it'll be caught somewhere. People will be cringing about it. But I am going to do it, and I'm going to do it with pride. He's going to look at me. He's going to look at me eye to eye. We're going to be doing this North Bank. Oh, I can't wait.
I saw a great tweet earlier that was like, it's a picture of Gary Neville, and it was like just a pretend quote that he can predict Gary Neville saying, I think he's taken it a bit too far there. Think about all the sacrifices the NHS made during the pandemic, and he's taken the mick out of masks. He needs to calm it down.
Yeah, do you know what? It wouldn't put it past them at all. Right. Okay. Well, look, that's really exciting. I want to ask, attacking options wise, we went into the summer knowing that we had to address these. So far, Viktor Gyökeres, and I stress so far, there's still a few weeks to go. Hand of Arsenal, of course, talking about or giving us all an update about Eberechi Eze and how Arteta is obsessed with Eze. With these two that are on screen, Madueke and Viktor Gyökeres, does it move the needle for you? Are these two, I guess, starters for you? Because Kai Havertz is still there. Martinelli is still there. Do they both come into the team and start straight away?
Noni Madueke doesn't for me. No, he's for me the primary reason that we're signing him is to have more of a competitive option to Bukayo Saka on the right hand side. He definitely can play for us on the left, but I wouldn't start him over Martinelli or Trossard on the left hand side. I think that role is reserved potentially for that final big signing that we make, be that an Eze or an alternative. And I believe Eze, even if he's not, that is his being, he's not his best role playing on the left. He's more of a central player, but I still think he'd offer potentially more than our current starters on the left do right now and could easily start in that front three. So Noni for me is, you think about the contribution of Raheem Sterling last season, who was the effective, number two in some ways to Saka. They looked at Nwaneri a little bit in that role as well. And he had varied performances, some really impressive ones that stick in our minds the most, but there are actually quite a fair few of them where he didn't really impact games. And that's because he's not a right winger. He is more of a central attacking midfielder Nwaneri, and that is the plan for him in the future. Madueke upgrades that number two to Saka position a significant amount. His underlying numbers are very impressive. The fee is too high for me, but it is the going rate of Premier League wingers in kind of that area right now. So that's what you're going to pay. And Arsenal have still even then got him for less than the other players that have moved in his bracket this summer so far. Gyökeres, again, it's if he can score at even half the rate that he was scoring, in Portugal, we're going to get more regular goal scoring from our number 9 next season. Kai Havertz, I think, still has a really important role to play in the club next season and what he'll bring to the team in multiple roles. But Gyökeres, if he can land that 30-goal mark in his first campaign, and I'm expecting at least 25, that's kind of the target I've set.
In all competitions?
In all competitions, yeah.
Okay.
In the Premier League, I'll be looking at like 18, 20 Premier League goals. I'll be looking at 18 to 20. And then however many else he can get in the other comps to take it past 25. That's what I'd be looking at as his first season at Arsenal in the Premier League. I think that's probably fair. That's what our expectations are of him. And then the following season, you're looking at trying to go over 30. That's what we would be looking, I think, in terms of an upward trajectory. So I think they both push the needle in the roles that they've brought in to fill, which is the number 2 on the right-hand side. Massive improvement. Centre forward, I think, I think it's definitely going to be a more traditional option. I don't think it's a massive upgrade on Havertz. I rate Havertz very highly, but I think it's still an upgrade.
It is indeed. I've just asked the viewing population who will end up with more Premier League starts next season, Viktor Gyökeres or Kai Havertz. Exactly 2/3 of you, 66% of you watching have voted saying that Viktor Gyökeres will play more Premier League games, ending up with more Premier League starts next season. And the season, of course, is just around the corner. The boys are in Singapore and the first friendly is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yep, tomorrow against AC Milan, 12 o'clock kickoff, I think.
How exciting, 12:30. Yeah, how exciting.
12:30, yeah.
We need to sell. I was with Sam Dean last night on the Daily Grind, and he was talking about how difficult it's going to be to sell some of our players, just because, a lot of these boys are obviously playing for a gargantuan club, the biggest in the world. They're settled in London. Their families are there. They're on a good wage. They're not going to move upwards, and there's probably a hesitance or a reluctance to move downwards, which is going to mean moving away from London. So when you think about Zinchenko, when you think about, maybe Trossard, when you think about Jakub Kiwior, who Sam is quite sure won't move, there is pressure on the club. We have to sell. We've got to raise funds potentially for maybe a 7th incoming, believe it or not. What a crazy window this has been. Who are you expecting, Tom, to see go out through the exit door this summer?
I am expecting the players that we think are going to go. It would be a surprise if Sambi Lokonga is here beyond the deadline. It'll be a surprise if Reece Nelson is. It'll be a surprise if Karl Hein is. It will be a surprise to me if Zinchenko is. And I know that Zinchenko's wage, I think, is probably the biggest stumbling block in his regard. I think it's a base figure. Capology say it's around £150,000 per week. It's quite a lot of money. But when we brought him in to be a starting left back, that was probably a fair wage for his stature in the club that he was coming in to be. He's obviously been eclipsed and outgrown in that time, perhaps faster than many of us expected. And I think injuries have played a part in that for him. And opportunities obviously taken by the likes of Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's come through as well. But when it comes to those exits, I expect those to happen. The one that I'm less likely, or rather less, what's the word, kind of expectant of, is the left winger change. Gabriel Martinelli and Trossard, I'm not yet convinced that they will go, or one of those two will go. And by the way, the only way I see Arsenal going for a Rodrigo or an Anthony Gordon is if one of those two leave. I think there's potential for Eze to come in regardless of those two and their futures, because he can play in so many different roles so successfully. But I think that for a Rodrigo, like a specific traditional winger, to come in, one of those two would need to leave. And at the moment, I don't necessarily see that happen. Trossard still remains in very, real talks with Arsenal over improvement of his terms to more reflect his role. He's only on around, according to Capology, about £90,000 per week, which, if we're being honest, his contributions over the last couple of seasons, he's worth more than that. He is worth more than what Reiss Nelson is on, or what Eddie Nketiah was on at Arsenal, to reflect kind of his stature in the team. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at. But the others, I would be surprised if we didn't see them out the door before the end of the window.
It's really difficult about sort of selling players. I've heard all the rhetoric. I've seen all the socials. I get messages from people all the time that are like, "I can't be so positive about the club. We've got to sell players. Got to see, why isn't Bert selling players? How's he, you got to prove his worth." Blah blah blah. You can't generate the interest in players who are comfortable in London, settled in London, on good wages in London. I mean, obviously we want to sell Trossard. Obviously we want to sell, the likes of Zinchenko and Reiss Nelson and get 15, 20, 25, 30 million for these boys. But there is a reason why Sambi Lokonga keeps going on loan. There is a reason why Fabio Vieira will keep on going on loan. There is a reason why we'll probably find it so difficult to actually move the likes of Zinchenko on. I mean, Zinchenko's on such a high wage. We're either going to have to take a massive hit in fee, or we're going to have to subsidise wages to get him gone to a smaller club. Reiss Nelson, another loan move Fulham are talking about. They're good players, but like I say, when you're moving downwards because of the wage that they're on, these clubs aren't going to come in, and they're not just sort of queuing at the door, Tom, saying, "Hey, look, here's 20 million for Trossard. Here's 15, 20 million for Reiss Nelson." The interest doesn't exist. So as much as I want Andrea Berta to work, he's not a wizard. He's not a magician. He can't. How are you going to do it? So I look, I'm not defending the club. I'm not on the payroll, blah, blah, blah. But I do find it we all want to sell some players, but it's so difficult just because of everything that I've articulated. Like Zinchenko's not going to go for 25, 30 million plus the 200 grand a week or whatever it is that he's on. That's just fact, so the club have got to be prepared to take it. And he's only got a year on his contract. So why would he go? He can stay in London. His kids are at school. He's settled. He's going to earn a couple of $100 grand a week, whether he plays or not. And he can go get a full fat signing on fee as a free agent next year. Yeah. Sambi Lokonga's contract runs out. Fabio Vieira, obviously, I don't know if he's got a year or two left.
He has two, I think, at least two. Yeah.
So the incentive is just not there for the players.
And I think you're spot on. And you say, on defending the club. At the end of the day, it's not about defending the club. It's just about being reasonable and objective about where we are and what these players are on. Some of them are on contextually right now bigger wages as to what they probably should be. But the reality is that when they signed for the club, those wages weren't seen in that way. Zinchenko, as I mentioned, signed from Manchester City, joining Arsenal to be their starting left back. The wage that he was on was reflective of his role in the club at that point. We've not renewed his deal. We've not improved that deal. That is just the money that he is and is currently on. Same goes, for Reiss Nelson, it was a case of we renewed his contract and improved his contract because we felt that there could have potentially been value there, like we did with Eddie Nketiah, who we ended up getting £30 million for, because we extended that contract. We could have lost him for nothing, if his contract hadn't have been renewed. And the same was feeling there about Reiss Nelson. Unfortunately, his injuries have persisted and really wrecked Arsenal's hopes of getting a significant fee. So the likelihood that he goes on loan is strong because for a team like Fulham, who are interested, will want guarantees about an investment. They don't want to invest in a player that they don't know is going to stay fit. So if they do get him on loan with an option or a potential obligation based upon certain terms that activates if he plays a certain number of games, that makes sense. The one deal that does stand out for me that Arsenal and Arteta in particular got wrong is Fabio Vieira. That £34 million is a lot of money that we paid for Fabio Vieira. He came in to be, an option, kind of an Ødegaard backup, if you like, and an option on the right-hand side. But he came in at an age and from a league where really he had to play regularly to really, return that investment. And Arteta, during that period of his tenure at the club, and that spread into last season as well, mainly because of injuries, though, was in a position where he didn't have competitive options. Vieira's level was so far off what Ødegaard was giving us, especially in that season, 2 seasons ago, when Ødegaard had a brilliant campaign and scored 15 Premier League goals. He never, ever, ever was going to get anywhere close to the starting 11 enough to return on his investment. And as a result, his value goes down. He goes on loan. He has a decent season in Portugal, but not enough to drum up enough interest in him. But that was one of the genuine mistakes. I think they've learned, in a sense from that. So when they've gone out and got Madueke, who would probably be the biggest question mark of the current summer, he's a player that, yes, we need because we need better depth to Saka. But because he can play in other roles as well, much more effectively than Fabio Vieira could play on the right, because he couldn't really play that role very well, it means that we can get a return on our investment across multiple competitions when we're operating now a much more higher and competitive level.
We are indeed. You're getting a lot of love in the chat, Tom. Tata Abdudama says, big up Tom Canton. He's had a low-key brilliant summer so far. Deserves his flowers. He's nothing low-key about it, mate. You've had a fantastic summer. Tom, we all love what you do. Lloyd says, 2 of my favourite Arsenal commentators. Respect to you both, lads. We got our man. The football gods have spoken. The player has moved heaven to be part of our team. Respect to him. Absolutely right. Very, very interested. And we might still get maybe one more. And listen, again, Sam Dean last night sort of saying Xavi Simons to Chelsea. Looks like he's got legs. Matt Law's been all over that story. But Eberechi Eze, hand of Arsenal today, giving an update before, of course, he goes off on his personal journey. Get well soon. We are all hoping that you make a swift recovery. He talks about Eberechi Eze. Arteta is, to quote unquote, obsessed with Eze. Now, of course, a couple of weekends ago, or 4 or 5 weekends ago, there was talks with his camp while he was on holiday. Apparently, there would be no hesitation from Eze's perspective to rejoin the club from his boyhood. Mm-hmm. Can we get excited about this, Tom? Do you think it's going to happen? Is he the right player for us? Everyone's shouting Eze now in the chat, but is he the right player for us?
So two questions. The first one, can we get excited about this? I'd say not yet. I would temper just your expectations a little bit because Arsenal do need to focus now once Mosquera and Gyökeres are through the door, and we expect that to be now, imminent. So Mosquera's in Singapore now. We expect Gyökeres to undergo, according to Miguel Delaney, the Independent, his medical now in Singapore and join up with the group, which is great news. Once they're done, the focus will turn more to trying to, in whatever means we can, that within the realms of what is able to be done, to try and move those players on, Of course, preseason is going to help with that to a degree because Reece Nelson should play. Lokonga might get some minutes. Preseason is not just about preparing for the new season. It's also about putting players that you don't necessarily want to keep in the shop window and remind clubs of their ability and their presence. And Vieira will expect to join up at some point as well, unless, of course, there is enough interest in him that he doesn't need to. So there is that aspect of pre-season as well. The thing about Eze is that, and as has been the case, and as to why the Gyökeres negotiations have gone the way they've gone and why we've kind of exploited the Mosquera contract situation to get a very cheap deal there and got Kepa on a very cheap deal and Norgard on a very cheap deal, is to give us as much freedom as possible so that if we want to go and get that third attacking player, which we do, that we've got the capacity to be able to do that. The club wants to operate comfortably within UEFA financial fair play restrictions. I know people don't like that and think we should just go hell for leather and do what we want, but that's the policy that they go by. They want to operate not up to the line. They want to work comfortably. We're just in Chelsea, and Aston Villa, of course, face consequences because of those recent breaches. Arsenal don't want to put themselves in the position of potentially breaching. So they need to start focusing on those sales. And once those, or at least hopefully some of those are done, they can then start considering the option for Eze, which, if it's to happen, I think can only really be done if they activate the release clause of £67.5 million.
It's a lot of money, but it's something that are. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mason in the chat says, Gunnar at heart is Eze. It would be fantastic. Listen, if we don't get Eze, and let's say after Viktor Gyökeres and Christian Mosquera, the activity stops. 6 signings this summer. What are you rating the window out of 10?
I think a 8.5. 8.5 out of 10. I said before the window started that I wanted 5 or 6 signings because I was thinking of it from like a realistic. The idea that Arsenal could get 7 signings in a window, which include the centre forward, which include an Eze, which include Martin Zubimendi, who is a player I have such great appreciation for, and I'm really genuinely excited to see what he can do to this team. alongside a bit of a surprise in Madueke, but again, a question mark, a bit of a maverick signing. We don't know what's going to bring. That rating of 8.5, I think, is changeable based upon how the season develops. If Madueke returns way more than a lot of us think that he will, that can affect it. If Gyökeres bangs more than the doubts I've had about him, it changes it. If we do end up, being able to utilize a lot of our squad and win things, I think we'll look at the window very differently. I think to go lower than an 8 for this window, I really struggle with how you would get to that conclusion as a fan. And having looked at previous windows, I'd really struggle with that personally.
Well, Alex Moneypenny today sent out a tweet just sort of, trying to get thoughts on the window so far. And my response to him was, if we can keep Trossard and Martinelli, and if we get Gyökeres and Mosquera over the line, we can probably kind of see it through until January. And then I took absolute pelters. The whole afternoon, my phone was going ping, 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 ping. Oh, here we go, January talk. Da, da, da. If we were to get Eze, and if we get these 6 that we've just talked about, to have 7 signings in one window, at some point, you have to start thinking about January. At some point, you have to say, 7 signings, 4 or 5 of whom will probably affect the first sort of 11, first 15, 16 that we have. I mean, that's unprecedented levels of activity from Arsenal. Like, how many more? People say, oh, yeah, get Eze, mate, get Rodrigo. Like, mate, 7, 8, 9 signings. It's not going to happen.
No.
It's not going to happen. So, yeah, for me, I think we've done some really important business. There were some holes.
Would you rate it if it stopped at 6?
I wouldn't quite go 8. I think I'd go 7
really?
out of 10. Yeah, I'd go 7.
I struggle with that so much because I just think, as you were saying, like, if you get those 6 signs, and by the way, I want to see the 7th, don't get me wrong, and I think we can get the 7th, 100%. And I think it is reliant upon some things that annoyingly are a little bit beyond our control in terms of interest from clubs and the players that we need to move on that weren't on Andrea's books, of course, when he arrived at the club. I look at those 6 signings and I look at what it does to the team. And I go through the 11, Raya and Kepa, Timber and White, Saliba and Mosquera, Gabriel and Kivior, Luis Skelly and Calafiori, Zubamendi and Norgard, Rice and Marino, Odegaard and Weneri, Saka and Madueke, Gyökeres and Havertz, Martinelli and Trossard. You've got 2 players in every single position, not to mention, of course, the potential of Gabriel Jesus to come back, not to mention what youth players might push up in terms of Max Dowman, of course, that we're expecting as well. I think there's even players I've probably forgotten about not in that list. And you can only put 20 names on a match day squad. And I've named 22 there before I've mentioned others and maybe that third signing in attack that we also want to see. So players are going to have to start being left out of this squad. So I think to look at the squad built at the end of the summer in that way and having those 22 plus whoever else, I struggle to drop down to a 7 because I look at what it's done to the team. That's kind of where I'm at on that side. I respect the view. I struggle to get there.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah. But Mikel spoke in his press conference yesterday and he said, obviously can't talk about players that aren't with the squad yet. That's not happened. But he said, he's encouraged. There's more activity to come. We are busy. We're active. Andrea Berta is working his thing. Who knows if Eberechi Eze is the final piece of this summer jigsaw? That would be a sensational window for me. If we were to get Eze,
what's it go to then?
It's probably a 9.5.
So getting Eze takes it from a 7 to a 9.5.
Yeah, because Eze is he's a phenomenal player. Yeah, he starts for me. He's a phenomenal player. Starts for me, and I think he answers a lot of questions, and he's very different to what we've got, Tom. We've talked about the lack of finisher, but we've talked about the lack of, the lack of sort of penetration. We've come up against so many sort of stubborn mid to low blocks, and you do that left to right, right to left, or you hope, you pass it to Saka and hope for the best. Like, we need players that can carry the ball, that want to run at players, that can just create something out of nothing. And Eze does all of that stuff. He carries the ball. He's got the pass in him. He's got the long range shot in him. It's phenomenal. And I think I really think he moves the needle.
What do you think of people that say with Eze, it's still only maximum a 7?
Nah, come on. That's just being so harsh.
Did you see the polls that I talked about it on my show this morning? Like, I said, if our window was as is right now, plus Eze, 63% of those 1,000 votes I got were between 7 and 8. So you can assume a lot of those were in the 7 with Eze. So Eze, Madueke, Gyökeres, Zubi, Norgard, Kepa, and Mosquera. Those 7 signings, 63% of 1,000 people that voted. It came the days kind of after the Madueke stuff was happening. I think the mood was quite low at that point, so maybe that's had an effect. And then when they swapped, if you swapped Madueke with Rodrigo, it jumped up to something like 67% between 9 and 10, like that, just by swapping Madueke and Rodrigo. Bear in mind, there was still 20% that voted 4 or less, which is that's just the trolls amongst the fan base, I guess.
What I've learned over the years, Tom, and I'm sure you're probably in the same camp, you can't please everybody. But I think if Arsenal were to end this window with the 6 that we've got, including Mosquera and Gyökeres plus Eze, I cannot fault the club. That is beyond my expectations of the window. Some may say I've got low expectations, but I can't remember a summer like it. And if you think about every player in isolation, there is a reason and there is a science behind appointing or buying each of those players. And of course, January is still there, and there are still, we still have a good squad. We've added 6-7 players that can really add to this. El Perdedor, thank you for your very generous donation to the channel. Says, for me, left wing was the priority, so I can't go over 7. And yeah, you know what? Eze is not a left winger, neither is Madueke. I think Madueke is going to pleasantly surprise a lot of people. Just before we go, Johnny Wonderling says, buzzing with this news, but Eze would make it an amazing transfer window. Chat's gone wild, man. Absolutely wild. I can't keep up. I don't know how you do it. You've got 3 times the following that I have. It's insane. I think we're going to leave it there. Tom, it's been a real pleasure. On a day like this, you can tell the mood is so happy. There's just shy of 1,000 of you watching live right now on YouTube. Please do like the video before you go. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We had Sam Dean of the Telegraph yesterday talking about potential moves. We've had Tom Canton obviously today. We've got Ben Jacobs coming up in the week. And if you've missed it on the channel feed, those of you that are new, there is a fantastic tactical masterclass with Pythag in Boots, who talks about the tweaks that Mikel Arteta has to make to house both Madueke and Gyökeres, and how our attack and how our play in transition might change in the course of the new season. Tom, hopes for pre-season? Do you care? Are you interested? You're going to be watching every minute of every game?
Yeah, I will be. Yeah, I'll be watching tomorrow. I'll be watching the Milan, Newcastle, Spurs games. I wish I was out there. I was meant to be out there, but I've got a wedding this weekend, so I couldn't be. Yeah, it's great to be able to see some of the new signs. The thing, genuinely, what I'm most excited to see is Martin Zubimendi and what he does to our midfield and how he changes it, how it evolves, how it becomes more progressive, how his influence on the team and the symphony and the tempos of that announcement video, of course, and how that links into what we're doing with him in the team. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see that. And, of course, with Gyökeres and Mosquera due to join up with the group as well, obviously what more they're going to be able to do in pre-season too.
Indeed. Enjoy it. Right. We will be back tomorrow. We'll look back at the game that is on midday. Our pre-season fixtures begin. If anybody wants to follow Tommy, he's available at Tom Canton Media and, of course, host of the excellent The Gooner Talk TV. Please do drop a like on the video before you go. Check out the videos on the feed. And if you've just joined in for the first time, head over to Spotify and to Apple if you prefer it in audio format. And if you would like to support the channel and be involved in giveaways throughout the season, head over to patreon.com/LatteFirm. We're going to leave it there. Enjoy your evenings. Let's go and practice some more Bane lines and have a fun night. Take care. Bye for now.